Hello there. Today marks the 1 year anniversary of doing my CBT and being able to ride a motorbike. What an amazing year it has been. Getting my first motorbike, the 125cc Keyway V Cruise, passing my full licence, and then getting the Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650, discovering many amazing places on each bike. So what led me to start riding motorbikes in my late 30s? Was it a midlife crisis? I was never really into bikes as a youngster. I was into cars, and especially Formula 1. Even when I used to race my mountain bike around, I never dreamed I was on a motorbike. It was always in the wheel of a Benetton or a Ferrari, pretending to be Michael Schumacher. I never had a motorbike racing game, and I never watched superbike racing. So where did my interest in motorbikes come from? During my mid to late teens, people I knew started getting their own 50cc's and then 125cc's and being able to go out and have freedom. During college, the yearning for freedom and others doing the same led me to go to motorbike shops in my college breaks when others went. I got caught up in this, and the idea of getting a 125 and being free was a wonderful thought at the age of 16 and 17. At my first Saturday job, I was going to buy a 50cc scooter off someone that worked there, and then I had a 125cc lined up to buy. It was a cruiser style bike. I can't remember the make or model, but it looked really nice. But it never went anywhere. Coupled with leaving college and passing my car test and being able to be free in a car, the idea never really went anywhere. During this time, I used to watch WWE wrestling. The coolest thing for me was when The Undertaker's music hit and a big loud American cruiser bike would come out. The look, the sound, it all appealed to a young me. A large Harley was what I wanted. I also started watching things like American Chopper. Although some of those bikes were ridiculous, and they still are, the idea of a large American cruiser still appealed to me. But again, this never went anywhere in my early 20s. In 2011 and 12, the idea came up again, as a couple of people at a new workplace had motorbikes. It was a little easier to gain a licence back then. You could do it on a 125 and 2 years later it became a full licence. But for whatever reason, it never happened. It was probably because I chose to get an MG convertible, so that took all my time, energy and money. For a few years I'd go to shows and drive around exploring in the MGTF, so the idea of a motorbike disappeared again. That was until 2023, when I was talking to someone at a new workplace who had a bike, and I started getting the idea of doing it again, as we discussed what it was like being out on a motorbike and how you would go about getting a licence. During a period of time off work in 2024, I wanted to get a bike to save time commuting. That wasn't necessarily a motorbike though. I looked at normal push bikes, e-bikes, electric motorbikes you could ride on a CBT, and even a 125. For a long time the idea of an electric motorbike such as a Horwin or Maving was appealing. I had memories of 50cc's and 125 sounding hilarious and laughing at them as they'd go by. No noise, no laughter in my mind. I nearly purchased a Horwin unseen and untested for when I did a CBT. But doing a CBT I realised 125s didn't sound as bad as I remembered. Also I remember the hassle of having to put a car on charge every few days in winter because the battery wouldn't charge enough from the journeys I was doing. The idea of doing this nearly daily to a motorbike took my enthusiasm for that idea away. While I was off work, I decided if I didn't do it now, I never would. So I booked a CBT for a couple of days later, purchased some cheap motorbike gear and cheap non-motorcycle shoes from Shoe Zone, and prepared for the day I would finally ride a motorbike. On a side note, I definitely wouldn't buy cheap gear again. I've had to upgrade anyway, and it was wasted money as no one is going to buy low quality Chinese gear off you. Most of it is now broken, and even if I hadn't continued on motorbiking, someone would have bought decent gear second hand. So if I were to do it again, or if you're going to start out, I would say get decent gear to begin with. The day came for the CBT and I hated it. I didn't get on with it at all. I nearly left halfway through the day. I'd lived without a bike so long, maybe I was just in love with the idea and it was something that should remain in the past. Trying to control a small 125 as a large guy was hard and uncomfortable. I'd lived this long without one, and 2 hours of trying wasn't making me fall in love with the idea. I even fell off at one point, and that was almost the last straw. It was looking like our group wasn't even going to go out on the road that day. I wasn't going to pay for another day for something I wasn't enjoying. Lunch couldn't come soon enough. I decided I was going to leave, but a bit of lunch, some rest, chatting with the others, having a bit of a laugh, my determination not to fail at another thing kept me going, and I stuck with it. So these are some of the roads that I used to ride around on my mountain bike and walk when I was young. I know them well. I have many great memories from going down these roads. This is just an aside, by the way. But I never would have dreamt as a youngster that I'd be riding these on a motorbike. But I have memory also of some people I went to school with being killed in a car crash on one of these bends. So although they've sold the road a bit since then, it's still a sobering thought that people who were 18, 19 and just starting out life were killed. So yeah, it can be quite dangerous out on the roads, and even on roads that you know very well. And as a motorbike, obviously we're very vulnerable. You know, I see people racing around all the time and doing stupid things and not thinking, and whereas that extra split second will, you know, looking and thinking will just not going to make any difference to your day, but making a difference to a life. I know of a route we used to get over an hour. We used to race back like nutcases to try and make the timings, and at the end of it you'd either end up at the same traffic lights as you would have done at the same time as going slow and considerate, or you'd maybe save a minute to 2 minutes, which isn't really worth it in the end if you think about it. So yeah, it's just a little public safety announcement from me. You know, you might know your roads well, and you might want a bit of fun, but there's always someone or something out there that at the blink of an eye can end that. So yeah, that's why, as I say at the end of all my videos, you know, stay safe and have fun. Stay safe, yes, the roads are dangerous, and trust me, driving 9 hours a day, you will be shocked at some of the things you see. It is absolutely ridiculous, and how some people make it home every night, I don't know. But anyway, let's get back to motorbikes. The afternoon got better. We eventually went out on the road and I started enjoying it. I had loosened up a bit and was used to the small bike. It still wasn't the best, but all I needed to do was a couple more hours and I could go and purchase a larger bike. I received my CBT certificate and that was it. Next day I was off out to buy a 125. I had settled on a Keyway V-Cruise from reviews I had seen, as it was on the larger side of 125s, plus the local bike shop sold them. My plan was to run it for 2 years, as I only wanted it to cut through traffic, and then if I enjoyed it a couple of years on, I'd either do a CBT again and keep running it, or then I would decide to do a full licence. If I was going back in time though, I wouldn't get an expensive 125 or even a 125 at all. I was over the age of 25, I could go straight direct access and save time and money, but there we go. I wasn't thinking straight or very far into the future in that point of time. I also bought into the dealer's guff that, oh well, they hold their value and because we'll be looking after it, we'll know the history and buy it back for near enough the full price. Yeah, I lost a fortune trading it in after 5 months with 1,500 miles on the clock. Unless you're absolutely going to ride a 125 for years because you have to due to your age, that was a big expensive mistake, but just one of many during my past year of motorbiking. But let's just for a minute talk about the UK bike licence. It is so complex to do. If you had to do a CBT, then an A2 licence, then a full licence, and this over a period of several years if you started at 17, It would cost a fortune and it would take a lot of effort, and for me it would have taken a lot of will and to continue, and enthusiasm would probably wane and I'd move on to other things. It's probably part of the reason why motorbikers at shows are generally of the older generation, because it was way easier to get on a motorbike back then. Even in the not so distant past, when I was first looking at doing it, it was a lot easier. Also, larger bikes are easier to control, especially for us larger gentlemen. In fact, a 125 was unsafe for me at times, as I had difficulty balancing on it or being able to turn it properly, as the handlebars would hit my knees. I could never get comfortable on smaller 125s, and even the keyway at times was a bit of a struggle. I can never do a U-turn on it because of the handlebars and the mirror. So due to this, I wasn't always paying attention on the road and what I should have been doing. And if bikers need all this training for safety reasons, I'm sorry, but a car should also then have a 3-tier system. Some people driving sports cars are a danger to themselves and others. Driving 9 hours a day on the road, some of the worst people are those in sports cars who have graduated to big dangerous 4x4s from Nissan Micras. School time is one of the worst times to be driving. They buy a large vehicle to protect themselves, but it's others who actually need protecting from them. And also, I'm down some country lane somewhere thinking it'd be nice and quiet while I'm recording this, and this has seemed to have turned into the main road of Britain down here. I keep having to stop because of the amount of cars. This is ridiculous, but there we go. Anyway, this is the rant over. So, back to motorbikes. So I did my direct access course after about 2 months of having my 125. Even though it was nice for me being on the keyway, as it was a larger one, it was still uncomfortable and I looked comically big on it. I wanted to just get on with getting a large bike at this point. I went with a local provider of motorbike training. I won't name them, but this to me was another expensive mistake. I wasn't happy with training, and it cost far more than it should have, even though I failed and had to redo each part of the test. The standard fee was a lot more than others were charging, and I only went with them because they literally are 10 minutes down the road, and the others were about an hour away through traffic. So it was partly laziness that cost me probably a lot of money, but there we go. The training was disorganised. This in part led to me having to do Mod 1 and Mod 2 twice due to me failing. But it wasn't just me. Everyone else I went to test days with also had to do each one again. Part of the failing was on me doing stupid things, but that's because I had no confidence, as we were taught by different trainers each day, giving different ways of doing things, and in the tests I was all over the place. We also did very little, if nothing, on Mod 2 practice out on the road. We were meant to have a whole day at that, but again their disorganisation led to us repeating a day of Mod 1 pad work, and we didn't need that. We had got it sorted, we had it in our minds how to do it, and new trainers went and gave us completely different ways of doing it, and it just messed with your head. I passed my Mod 2 in December after starting in July. During that time I only used my 125 twice. I had fallen out of love with it. Had I failed in December, I would have just given up and probably sold my 125 or kept it until the CBT ran out. But I managed to pass my Mod 2 the second time with what I thought was my worst ride ever. I didn't really care if I passed or failed at that point. I think that helped a lot, as I wasn't overthinking things and I wasn't nervous or tense. I was also far enough away from the confusing chaos of the summer that it was on me and how I wanted to ride and get things done, not all these conflicting everyone's opinions and different ways of doing things just floating around in my head. When I had finished my ride, I was about to apologise to the examiner for wasting his time, and then he told me, shockingly, I had passed. I only had 2 rider faults, a stall and being too close when passing the car. I had stalled quite early on in my test. We had come round a corner downhill and to a junction where there was cars parked, and the sun was quite low because of winter. I let up on the clutch. Yeah, I let up on the clutch and the bike stalled. But I got it started immediately, but in my mind, from what I had been listening to from trainers and people, if you stalled it's a fail. So in my mind I had failed. But I guess it's true what they say, carry on even if you think you failed. Had I gone with that mentality of I failed, I'm not going to care now, I would have definitely failed on something else. But in the end, because I got it going again so quickly and it didn't affect anyone else's drive or interrupt anything, it was only a minor, it wasn't a fail. So this shows you how important mentality is as well. If you think you're poor and rubbish at something, or that you're a failure or failed, you're going to judge yourself and everything you do in that light, and you'll be harsh on yourself. Whereas the objective, detached person sees it how it actually is. You probably aren't as bad as you think you are. Even during this period of failing my Mod 2 for the first time, I was ready to give up. The money set aside for a motorbike I went and spent on buying a Jaguar. I almost cancelled my Mod 2 retest as well. I saw it as I had tried and maybe it wasn't for me. I'd returned to the love of cars. But I stuck with it though. It's been costly and a rough and windy path, but in the end I got there and I now have my licence, and I'm so grateful that I kept on doing it. So the day that I passed my licence and got my A licence, I went straight to my local bike shop and traded the 125 in. I decided on an Interstellar Super Meteor 650 which had been done up with extras and was on offer. It was just the bike for me. But until I purchased it and saw it in the shop, it wasn't the bike I was going to get. For months I wanted a shotgun 650 after watching endless videos on it, reading everything I could about it. Sitting on it, it just didn't feel right for me. It wasn't comfortable for me. I later rode it when I took my Super Meteor in for the first service. You can see videos of it on here. And it's a lovely bike, but for me and what I wanted to do, it isn't the one. But the Super Meteor just felt right sitting on it. It was comfortable and I just felt at one with it. There were other bikes I considered. It wasn't necessarily going to be a Royal Enfield either. I considered the V-Cruise in the 300cc format, a couple of other bikes from different makes, as well as the Honda, Suzuki and Kawasaki offerings for cruisers, and even a 350 Meteor in yellow. I had the idea of keeping yellow and black colour theme going from the V-Cruise, but in the end Royal Enfield definitely won the day for the brand I'd end up with. How long will I keep the Super Meteor for? I don't know. I was eyeing up a classic 650 at a show recently, and someone asked me if I wanted to sell up already. Well, not quite. Maybe the rumoured Bullet 650 will tempt me, or maybe I'll get a big American Harley after all these years, or maybe I'll get a second bike, or keep the Super Meteors for years to come. Who knows? And how did I end up with a YouTube channel? Well, I recorded a few rides so that a couple of people I knew who couldn't ride could feel the experience. I then had the idea of sharing organ music I had recorded and visiting interesting places in the local area, but it never really took off. So I thought, well, since I've got a Keyway V-Cruise, which isn't very common, I would then start recording how it was to ride, showing people videos of how it was to ride, what it sounded like, etc. And then it kind of just kept going from there until we are here today. So was it a midlife crisis that led me to finally take up motorbikes? In part, probably yes. It was a scratching of an itch, I guess, and wanting to return to those young days at college and the yearning for freedom. But it was by no means easy and no means guaranteed that I would have ended up with a motorbike licence, or even continued riding a 125 after all those years. They say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Sure, it would have been great to have been doing this for 20 years during my youth, but it is never too late to start. If you are thinking about starting, there is a bike out there for you. There is a way to get it done. Though the road to the destination might be winding, difficult, and throw up many challenges as U-turns, you can do it. Don't give up on that dream and keep motoring on. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay safe and have fun.